Hi everyone, my name's Chris Dickey and I'm the Euphonium and tuba teacher at Washington State University. I wanted to take a few moments today to give you some advice for those of you who want to submit recorded auditions for the 2021 All Northwest Conference. So I'll begin by talking about the Arbin characteristic study number 1. So here's some things that I think you can think about. At first glance, this is really technical. It looks like it's a lot of finger wiggling, right? We do need to think about quick, clean fingers, but also about a clear tone that speaks. So make sure tone is a priority while you're practicing this. It's not all about the speed. It has to be about the sound too. So if you have to think about what's more important, your sound and clarity, or my goodness, I played all these notes really fast, you should really lean toward clean, clear sound. So the 16th notes, there are a lot of them, are already short rhythmic values, especially with this time signature and the tempo. So don't think too crisp or detached when you articulate with the staccato. Remember, we still need to hear a warm, rich euphonium tone from you, even though we're playing quick 16th notes. Generally speaking, just don't clip the notes that are at the ends of a slur. In fact, think of those notes at the ends of a slur as longer so that you actually end up playing them their printed value. Arbin studies were originally written not for the euphonium. They were originally written for trumpet cornet, so that's half the size of the euphonium. So the phrase length can be an issue and how long we can play on one breath. In my recording, you're going to hear me stretch time just ever so slightly at certain spots where I just personally need to take a breath. I cannot play multiple measures on one breath. I can play some groups of measures, but I can't play, for example, 10 measures in a row. I just have to take a breath, and odds are you will too. When you start to notice that your sound starts to change. Something about it you don't like. Maybe it gets small. Maybe it gets tiny, not really rich and resonant anymore. Or you start to develop tension. Maybe you notice your shoulders rising. You're just a ball of knots. Odds are you can choose to add a breath in some other spot. So when you add these breaths, and again, stretching time just a little bit, this will help you remain human above all else. Help you remain human while you're playing this etude, and it lets you actually display your good, clear sound and good, clear technique, and we want both of them. I often stretch time at these breaths so that the breath just works for me. I think if I'm going to go ahead and make a concerted effort to take a breath, it should be a good breath, the one that fills me up, helps me sound good, helps me feel good, therefore it is good. So go ahead and now listen to my Arbin characteristic study, number 1. Okay, now we'll go ahead and move on to the Telemont Sonata excerpt. Try to think of some of these things. The first, tone, tone, tone. It's all about how you sound. That might sound familiar by now at this point in this video, but I truly believe that tone has got to be number 1. It's got to be your priority. So we want a really gorgeous, resonant, singing tone quality throughout this excerpt. If you look at it, you'll notice that this excerpt is just right in that nice playing range of the euphonium, or the sweet spot, or what I call the meat and potatoes range of the euphonium. So if it's in a spot that works really well for the euphonium, you really do need to play with your absolute best tone. Aim for as much contrast as you can achieve. Are you really getting the ups and downs, the swells, the crescendos, and the diminuendos? Are you coming back to mezzo piano or even piano when it says to? I would say the arrival is measure 11, right? The arrival is measure 11 on the C and E flat right there, just above the staff. So be sure that everything grows to that moment. Challenge yourself really to play with a beautiful sound at the different dynamics. Practice a bunch of scales, maybe major scales up and down, minor scales up and down, chromatic scales down low in the middle range, and even up top, to just get really comfortable with how you sound and how you should sound with different dynamic levels, so that when you come back and play the Telemont, we hear those contrasts. Playing softly with a good tone takes a little bit of effort. We have to think about it. We have to work at it. But it's really worth it because you don't want to be that player that submits a recording where everything just sounds the same. Everything's forte. Everything's just loud. I think you'll be really pleased with the result you get if you go for those contrasts. It'll be more fun to play, and it'll be a lot more enjoyable to listen to. Right? So now go ahead and listen to my excerpt recording of the Telemont. All right, so now I'll finish by discussing the Bach Cello Suite excerpt. First, you're playing something not written for a wind instrument. So this means you might need to breathe in more places than what's included on the excerpt. For example, that breath mark in the second system of the music, that breath mark could work for you, but you might also need to add others throughout, just so that you can keep the music going and keep playing with a good sound. You'll hear me in my recording add some breath marks and stretch time just a bit, so that each breath I take is good and replenishing and just keeps me going with my good sound. Sort of similar to the Telemont excerpt, you have to consciously think about getting all of those contrasts, the dynamic contrasts, to come out of your bell. Right? The more contrasts, the better. Think of it that way. For those piano passages that have quickly moving notes, maybe the 8th notes and 16th notes, think of those like an intense whisper. You think of it with that type of clarity. The dynamic is softer, but it's crystal clear, an intense whisper. And then for the forte passages, just think of that like a full voice, not just loud, right? Because if it's loud, it kind of loses the beautiful quality that we're trying to portray in playing this music. Keep the tone and articulation clean throughout. We do want to hear every single note that you play. This is also dance music. It's marked jig or a jig. Yeah, based on the way you play it, it should make someone feel like they could get up and move around. It has to sound cutesy and light and buoyant. So try aiming for that when you're practicing and when you're recording. Someone should, be inspired to get up and dance around. That's what we're going for. I also like to think of beat 1 in each measure as the most important. Boom, chick, chick, boom, chick, chick, boom, chick, chick, boom, chick, chick. Kind of helps keep the music going rather than sounding monotonous. Da 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 da. We want to hear this music in 6/8 rather than just all these repeating notes, da 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 da. That's kind of monotone. We don't want to play that way. So I hope that some of these tips for these excerpts have been helpful. I'm glad to help anyone. So please don't be afraid to reach out to me. I'd be happy to set up a Skype lesson or a Zoom lesson with you, especially as you prepare to do your recordings. Always glad to help people. Really, good luck with everything, and I hope to hear from you. Bye.